Hello everyone, I'm aReNGee and I'd like to welcome you all back to the latest episode of Stock Talk. Today we're going to be talking about another one of the Tier 1 lists from last patch, which is Stonescar Jito, a deck that focuses on using Frontier Jito and a whole bunch of 1-drops in order to overwhelm their opponent as quickly as possible, barring the most feared card in the game, Lightning Storm. Now this isn't actually a deck that I've played a whole lot. I've played it enough to understand it a reasonable amount, but it's not something that I've been laddering with a ton, so I didn't have any lists that were up to date for the current metagame that I felt comfortable sharing with you guys. So I've reached out, and this time I'm going to be going with 3 ladder lists rather than 2 of them, starting with one provided by Unearthly. Some of you guys will remember Unearthly provided one of the ladder lists for Rakano, and he's been a huge help throughout this entire process because he spends a lot of his time on a single deck, which leads to a very polished final product, which this deck is. The first thing that jumped out at me when I looked at this deck was the fact that there's only actually 3 Frontier Jitos. Now, I talked to him about this, and he said that the reason for this is that they are terrible in multiples. Frontier Jito is a card that's really good at giving you a lot of aggression, but they don't stack at all, and it's not really something that you want to prioritize having in your deck. So he's looking to play more of a burst strategy in this particular deck rather than the all-in 1-drops. So he didn't find that the full 4 Jitos was necessary, which I found was an interesting change. He's got what looks like a very solid package of Blood Beetle, Grenadin Drone, Knifejack, Oni Ronin, and Pyroknight as his 1-drops for a full 24. 23 aggressive 1-drop units, which is a whole lot and works really well with the Jito. And he's playing, of course, the mandatory 4 torches in an aggressive fire-based deck. But for his removal, he's decided to go with 4 Rapid Shots. Now, Rapid Shot is a card that not everybody plays. It's a fast spell. It gives a unit +4 attack and quick draw for the turn. Now what this means, quick draw, when you're attacking, is you hit before the opponent hits. So if you just play this on an unblocked unit, it's just 4 points of damage and it's a bigger torch, so that's pretty good at ending games quickly. But if you play it on a 2 attack unit, it boosts it up to be able to take out something with 6 health, say Sandstorm Titan, and even on a 1 attack minion it can take out a 2/5 like a Combre Healer. So Rapid Shot is a card that's really good at pushing damage through and allowing you to attack through boards without giving you any disadvantages whatsoever. Like Combust would trade for those units too, but it would cost you a card, one of the other units that you needed to sacrifice. So this was some interesting tech that I liked a fair amount. I thought it was pretty good, especially when people are moving to a more unit-based strategy. If people are looking to block your guys with units, then Rapid Shot is definitely going to be very effective against them. And it's going to be less effective if people are trying to take out your units with spells. I'm going to skip the one of Argentport Instigator for now and look at his 3-drops. He's playing 3 Assembly Line, 3 Shadowlands Guide to reload in the mid-game, and he's playing 4 copies of Rally. Rally is a card that people started playing back in the day and has sort of moved out of many of the Stonescar lists in favor of Bandit Queen, which he's also running 4 copies of. What Rally in this list tells me is that he is trying to look for the overwhelm his opponent with an all-in attack, and he's not really too concerned about how he has to do it. Between Rapid Shot, Rally, and Torch, he's got a bunch of reach if he ever happens to get unblocked units through. So just having these on the field gives him a whole bunch of burst potential, especially when combined with a Frontier Jito to attack. Notably, Assembly Line works really well with the Jito, as all of the 1/1 Grenadins that come out have charge and can attack immediately. And Rally is it's also another way for all of your units to trade. If you make a bad attack, your opponent blocks a couple guys, suddenly Rally can make it so that those 1/1s are trading with their 3 health units. Shadowlands Guide is also a card that's really good with a number of cards in the deck. Jito comes back, gives charge again. Grenadin Drone gives you multiple bodies. Blood Beetle can come back as a flyer and activate its Infiltrator again. And Pyroknight doesn't always happen, but if the game goes late enough, you can ultimate it, have it be killed, and bring it back to ultimate it again with the Shadowlands Guide. So it's got a fair amount of synergy there, as well as being a 3-power attacker for 3. So its inclusion in the deck makes sense. And And this goes to show how foolish I was when building Jito. He's playing the full 4 Bandit Queens because Bandit Queen is just such a good card at overwhelming the opponent. The only question is Bandit Queen rallies 5 through 8, or is rally Bandit Queen number 5 through 8? Finally, up at the top, he is playing the Lurking Sanguar package, which makes sense when he's playing the rally style of deck. You're never going to be able to actually get charge on your Sanguars from your Jitos, but just being able to play them on turn 2 or 3 as a 4-2 lifesteal is going to be really good at pressuring your opponent, and also the lifesteal helps in the racing. So I think it's a good inclusion. The cards that I don't like in this deck is the Singleton Argenport Instigator. It doesn't combine with any of the other cards in the deck, and it just leads to you taking a lot of damage as if you get Lightning Stormed. It's only a 1-of, so it's not the biggest oversight in the world, but I just don't think it adds anything to the deck compared to how it detracts from it. If you get stuck on Double Fire Sigil, you can't cast it. It slows you down because you can't really... once you get up to 3, you want to play a 3-drop. You don't really want to play a 2-drop and a 1-drop, and it just makes your curve kind of awkward. However, this is a fantastic starting point for the Jito archetype, but it does show some... that even within something as simple as just play a bunch of 1-drops and attack, there's a number of there's some room for tech choices, like Rally and Assembly Line was not something that was commonly seen in the Jito lists, as we're about to see. Progressing on to the second ladder list, which was submitted by a player named SpacePlague. SpacePlague is playing the same core units as Unearthly, with the Blood Beetle, the Frontier Jito, the Drones, the Knifejacks, Ronins, Pyroknights. He's gone with the 4 Jitos, which makes more mainstream sense. I think what Unearthly was doing was not wrong necessarily, but certainly more advanced of a deck building technique of just playing the 3 Jitos, because he's found in his experience with the deck that that's all that he needs. And SpacePlague also came along with the Rapid Shot deck, although he only has 3 copies in the deck, which I think is reasonable. You don't need the full 4. They don't stack super well in multiples. You can't always be holding up power, as this is a rather power-starved deck. However, he's also playing 2 Suffocates, which are very good in a metagame where people are playing stuff like Argenport Instigator, Seraph, Combray Healer, and various other 3-power blockers. Feln Bloodcaster is another 2/5 that dies to Suffocate very well, but not to Torch. So it's a good card to trade with both the other aggressive units and to push your damage through pretty quickly, which I think is interesting. He's playing, again, skipping some of the early drops for now, he's playing the same Shadowlands Guide Bandit Queen package as Unearthly has. Interestingly, this deck has no Sanguars, and moves instead for more 3-drops. He's playing a full 4 Shogun Scepter, a card that does combo quite well with Jito, as the Oni Ronin that you get out of it can attack immediately, as can whatever you played the Scepter on. So you end up getting a 4-2 worth of charge value if you've got a Jito in play, which is a fair amount, especially when you get 2 Warcry triggers off of it. It's a card that I like. If your Blood Beetles ever get flying, they're aggressive attackers, Pyroknights can push damage through, etc. And you've got the Rapid Shots to keep your Scepter guy alive, so it's tech that I like. Again, it doesn't work as well on its own as the Assembly Line does in the previous build that we were looking at, but I think it combos over well quite nicely with the deck and is a good addition to it. Looking at cards that I do not like in this deck, again we've got the 2 Argenport Instigators, cards that they mess up your curve because on 2 you really want to be playing 2 1-drops, and they don't add a whole lot of value. They're a ton of beef on their own, and they do survive Lightning Storm, but if you get Lightning Stormed early on, you're going to be in trouble regardless against any kind of deck that can follow that up. And they don't trade too well against any of the things that this deck has trouble with. It doesn't push through... It trades with an enemy Argenport Instigator, which is okay, but it doesn't push through any of the 2/5s, or Seraph is a 3/4, and it definitely doesn't push through a Sandstorm Titan without the assistance of a card like Rapid Shot, which would push, a 2/1 through any of those as well. So again, it's not a card that I like too much, and it's not a card that I would personally include in my deck. Next up we have Champion of Chaos, which is a very powerful card when the influence is there. It is a 3-power, 5/5, deadly overwhelm. However, in such an aggressive deck, with a curve that stops at 3 and only the 25 power, it's pretty hard to actually turn on more than one side of the champion. And if you don't have that on, the Champion of Chaos is just a 3/3 guy that doesn't do anything. It's just a more expensive Argenport Instigator. So this is a high-risk, high-reward card in the Jito archetype, a deck that's already pretty high-risk, high-reward. As when it's on, the card is fantastic, especially if you get Deadly and Overwhelm together. It's very difficult to block at all, as it will always push through damage with that Deadly. But if you have it off, it's just a generic 3/3, and you've spent your entire turn playing something that just dies to Torch, and that's not particularly impressive. Or even Suffocate. It also adds to your opponent's silence value, as it gives them a good silence target, whereas this deck generally doesn't have anything too fantastic to silence. Like, you can silence a Jito and that's okay, but you know, it's usually done its job by the time the silences have come down. So again, some interesting tech choices. A lot of the cards are the same, but he's gone for the Shogun Scepter Champion of Chaos package, whereas Unearthly went for a Rally Assembly Line package. Moving on to our final list for the stock decks, we have one by Crispah, I believe is how that's pronounced. He has also gone with the 3 Frontier Jito for the same reason that Unearthly had. He just found that drawing multiples was very bad and he didn't need them in order to win. Again, we're looking at the same core package of 1-drops, which I will not restate here. But Crispah has declined to go for the Rapid Shot tech in favor of more Suffocates and Sabotage, which is a very interesting choice. Sabotage is a card that can take a Lightning Storm out of your opponent's hand, which can be absolutely devastating given the speed of this deck, and is a very proactive choice. It's very cheap, so you can throw it in anywhere, but it doesn't help you if your opponents are playing units against you. There's also not a lot of relic weapons that you can take, so it's mostly just going to be taking a removal spell, or hopefully a mass removal spell out of your opponent's hand. And it's a more proactive approach to overwhelming the board against spell-based decks. So I think Sabotage is a very good inclusion if you expect a whole lot of Lightning Storms. And Suffocate does actually protect him against a whole lot of the blockers that are going to be played there. So he has a spell-based defense package to keep his core cards alive, which I think is an interesting way to play Jito. It's slightly more defensive, but it leads to fewer games where you get blown out and you have no ways to come back. The question is, does that hurt your speed too much? He has no 2-drops, which I approve of, and he's playing the Shadowlands Guide Shogun Scepter package, along with only 3 Bandit Queens and 4 Lurking Sanguars. So he's gone for the Sanguars, which lends some credence, I believe, to his Sabotage plan, as Sanguars are things that you really don't want to die to those Lightning Storms, but will help you end the game very quickly if Lightning Storm doesn't come out. So he has the pressure to go with the Sabotage, and I don't think that it's a poor choice. It's just a different way to play the deck than the previous 2 had, where the other ones went with either the assembly line or the more Shogun's champion plan. He's going with a Sabotage Suffocate based, more reactive style of play. Here we also see 3 Champion of Chaos, a card that I don't like in general in these Jito lists, but I like a little bit more here since he's going for a bit of a slower reactive style of play. I think it has a better place in this deck than it did in the previous one. And he's only playing 3 Bandit Queens, something that we haven't seen so far. Bandit Queen is very interesting because much like Rally, you only usually need 1 in order to win the game. Now, I've talked to Crispah about this. He said that he had trouble sometimes where he got stuck on 3 power and couldn't cast the Queen, and getting 2 Queens stuck in hand was pretty bad. Also because when Queen was good, you usually didn't need the second one to win the game, so you only ever wanted to draw 1, and that's why he's only playing 3. A stance that, again, I I like. It shows that he's been playing the deck a lot and has seen some issues with the standard numbering. But again, Bandit Queen is such a good card that I am surprised to see only 3 copies here, and I'm glad to hear that there's a well thought out reason for why. So we've looked at 3 different ways to play. There's the very go wide strategy, there's the more middle of the road strategy, and there's this more defensive strategy of Stonescar Jito. And looking at these and 2 other lists that I didn't get a chance to show here, I've been able to come up with a stock list for Stonescar Jito. The 1-drops are the same as you've seen everywhere. The Blood Beetle, Frontier Jito, Grenadin Drone, Knifejack, Oni Ronin, Pyroknight. These are the best 1-drops that you get in Fire and Shadow, and these are the ones that you should play. We're going with the full 4 Frontier Jitos for the stock list. If you find, like several other players have, that you only need the 3, feel free to cut it down to 3, but as a starting point to get used to the deck's playstyle, I think it's best to go with the maximum number of Jitos. I really like the Rapid Shot deck, especially in the current metagame, as it's effective both against the variety of units that are going to be blocking your guys. It's not so good against the Lightning Storms, but it's good at bursting down any of the mid-range decks, as well as pushing through something like Sandstorm Titan, which is a pretty commonly played card at the moment. I've only decided to include 3 copies because I feel that, the card doesn't stack that well in multiples and you only really want to draw 1. And the threat of Rapid Shot can oftentimes be as effective as the actual Rapid Shot itself. 4 torches, of course, are mandatory. 3 Shadowlands guide is a number that I've seen in basically every Stonescar Jito list, and one that I've adopted here. I like the Shogun Scepter package, so I've gone with 4 of those, as it combos well with most of your other cards. And for Bandit Queens, again, I think the card is good enough that it's worth playing the 4. But if time and experience tell you that 3 is all that you need, by all means, go to 3. And I like the burst of Lurking Sanguar. It's especially effective if your opponent is playing an additional their own aggressive deck and you need to race them. The lifesteal really helps you pull ahead in that race, as they will need to focus the Sanguar first, and it will gain you a bunch of life in the meantime. Now, the interesting cards that I've included in the stock list that I expect will be the first ones to come out is I've decided to go with 3 Assembly Line in lieu of any sort of removal spell or champion or what have you there. I'm not personally a big fan of Champion of Chaos. It's something that you can try if you have had success with it in the past or you'd like to check it out. But Assembly Line is a much simpler way to win the game, as it combos with Jito. It goes really well with Bandit Queen, and even just the simple curve of Assembly Line into Bandit Queen can win games post-Storm, something that I think is important for this deck, to be able to rebuild quickly. That's part of where the Shadowlands guide comes in. And it gives you more go wide strategy, and you can overwhelm your opponent's removal, which I think is how this deck should look to win the late game. Well, I say late game, that's turn 4+, is by having good rebuilding cards that are also good when you're on the aggressive, rather than playing some more mid-range units like the Champion or the Instigator. There are no Instigators in this list. The other, possibly blasphemous thing that I've done is I have included 26 sigils in the stock deck. Nearly every other Jito list that I've ever seen plays 25, but I've also seen Jito lists get stuck on power a whole bunch and not be able to cast any other 3 and 4 drops. And this list has a higher curve than the average Jito list. It's playing 10 3-drops and then some 4 drops and 5 drops. You're not in a good place if you're casting Lurking Sanguar, but Pyroknight is a much better reason to get to 5. And it's something that doesn't usually come up in the average Jito game. You also have some trouble with your power requirements. Both Bandit's Queen and Shogun Scepter require double fire, something that you don't always find, especially if you can't get to 4 power. So I've included slightly more sigils in order to smooth out those draws, as well as the full 4 Diplomatic Seals, Seats, and Banners, to make sure that you get the influence that you need. As for the most part, you only need 1 of each, and it's only 8 cards in your deck that need a double fire. You're only looking for Fire, Shadow in this deck, so the Diplomatic Seals shouldn't really hurt you, as you only need 3 influence, and the diplomatic seals can provide that. It will certainly get you to the 3 influence that you need. If you find that 26 leads you to be flooding out too often, feel free to cut this down to 25. But given the higher number of 3 drops, I think I would be remiss if I did not adjust the deck's power base to something that supported that a little better. So this has been a talk about Stonescar Jito. I think a lot of players feel that this is a really simple deck to build and to play, but I like to think that we've looked at 3 decks that have a lot of nuance going on in their numbers, and even in their playstyles between the 3 very similar lists. You can take this stock list and adjust it to be closer to whichever one of the decks that I talked about that you liked, as I've included packages from both of them. I just don't recommend you go with any Argenport Instigators. I think that those are not cards that should be included in this particular style of deck. They're good. It's a good card, and it's fine for more of a Stonescar Queen deck, which usually does play the champions. So if you want to go for a slightly slower and less bursty version of aggro, I say go for it. But for the Jito decks, I think that leave them on the bench. This has been another episode of Stock Talk. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me talk about Stonescar Jito, and I look forward to seeing you all at the next one. This has been aReNGee, and I wish you all the best.